What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and in today's episode of the Super Smash Brothers and Platform Fighter tutorial series, we are going to be going over sound effects on hitboxes. So this is a very important one, because when we perform attacks, we likely want to play sound effects, and especially when we land attacks, we want to have some sort of confirmation sound, and just the sound effect to go along with the hit, a better experience and also more realistic. We come over here, and I am controlling my STB and my default character here in the bottom left, and if I attack with this certain attack, you will hear an explosive noise. And this noise is the noise that we assigned for the hitbox of this attack. So when this hitbox lands, we perform that sound effect. And so obviously this can be customized for every single hitbox in the game. So you could do it for things like throws, grapples, strikes and damaging moves, and a lot more. Now, if you want to get caught up in the entire series before checking out this episode, you can see how we've done things like items, game modes, throwing things, physics, sudden death, and a lot more. If you are interested, I'll link you to the playlist right here in the top right corner so you can see every episode we've done in this series. Alternatively, if you only care about sound effects on hitboxes and hitboxes in general, I do recommend you watch the first episode on hitboxes that we implemented in this series, because we're going to be expanding upon that logic today. So if you're familiar with that one, this episode will be a lot easier to follow. With that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. So this is a code and blueprint tutorial series. So let's start in the code. We're going to go to Visual Studio, and we want to go to our hitbox actor.h. So in here we can scroll down to our variables, and we want to add one for our hit sound. So we have U sound wave pointer, hit sound. And this is the sound effect that is going to play when the hitbox collides with an object or another character. So we've made it U property of edit anywhere blueprint read write with a category of hitbox. This just allows us to edit it and access it within the blueprint and find it more easily with the term hitbox when searching for it. Once we have this variable made, we can go into hitboxactor.cpp, and in the constructor where we set the default values for our variables, I want to set hit sound equal to null pointer, which is the default, which means no sound effect. The pointer isn't pointing at anything, and thus it's invalid, so no sound will be played when the hitbox lands. Also, another thing I want to do in here that isn't specific to this episode, but for some reason we never did it, is assign default values to a few of our other variables that we just never did. Specifically hitbox type, which determines things like if it's a strike hitbox or a hurt box, and hitbox location, which determines where we're going to spawn the hitbox, should be defaulted to values, and we never set them up. So I'm going to set them up here. Hitbox type equals e hitbox type, and we can use strike as our default. So it's hb underscore strike. And also I realized the enum is called e-hitbox enum. I want to call this e-hitbox type, being completely honest. Small detail, but I think it makes more sense this way. I'm going to change my variable from e-hitbox enum to e-hitbox type. And then in the CPP, this will now be found. And then we also want to set our hitbox location. And we can set this to an F vector that is zeroed out. So you can either do F vector 0. And if you don't like that, you can do it like this. So now these values are defaulted, and all of our variables now have default values in the constructor. Now with this done, we can go into our SSB template character.h. Specifically in here, we want to go to our take damage function, because this is when our strike hitbox has collided with a character, and so they're taking damage. When that damage occurs is when we want to play the sound effect. So if I scroll down here to take damage, we have int take damage, takes in a damage amount, horizontal launch, vertical launch amounts, an instigator, which is the pointer to the actor that had dealt damage to the character. And now I've added a new parameter in here, U sound wave pointer, hit sound equals null pointer. So if you don't manually pass in a sound effect, then no sound effect will be present. And take damage shouldn't require a sound effect to be played. If we manually choose to apply damage without a sound effect, that is something we should have the option to do. Just make sure when you have optional parameters in here that they're all at the end of the list. You'll see all of these are optional. And the reason this is important, if all your optional parameters aren't at the end, then you'll get compiler errors. So now that take damage has been updated, we can go to SSB template character.cpp, and we want to go to our take damage function. Here's take damage. In here, we want to make sure we add our U sound wave pointer hit sound. And then when we go inside of the function, the first thing we do is check to see if the character is not blocking. If they're not blocking, this means they're receiving the full damage because the hit has landed. At this point, we want to check if a hit sound is available. So if a sound effect exists for the cause of damage. If underscore hit sound. If it does exist, we want to play the sound effect. And to do that, we can use U gameplay statics, : play sound 2D. And this takes in a context. Context is anything that either in the world or the world itself. So if we just use get world, that will be good enough. This is the sound effect to actually play, which is called hit sound. And this is the volume to play it at, which we're using as 1.0f. Now to get U gameplay statics, : play sound 2D, we do need an include. So if we go up to the top of the file, I've included kismet / gameplay statics.h. So there you go. This is what we need to play our sound effect, but we need to assign that hit sound a variable to make this actually work. So now we're going to go into the editor. Now, since we changed that hitbox enum to hitbox type, when we run, we are going to have a few issues. So we can open all of our erroring blueprints, and specifically, we will start with our animation blueprint. If we go to the error here, you'll see that it is with our enum when we're trying to set it in create active hitbox. So simply we can just refresh this node and remove the old connection that we had. And we have to make sure that the connecting nodes on the parameter list in the create active hitbox are of the proper type. So if we click on the function and go to the parameter list here, we'll see that the type is right here and it is of type byte. But we actually want to switch this now to our enum again. So this is hitbox type now. Select that one. And now this will connect to our variable hitbox type. But you may have to clean up the nodes like I do here because technically it's still trying to set a type of byte instead of a type of hitbox type. So I'm just going to drag off of the newly spawned hitbox actor BP and set our hitbox type. And you can see that we can do it for the other one now, so all is good. That's the only issue with the animation blueprint, so now we can go to the other one, which is our hitbox actor BP. And when we come in here, we have an error as well. So if we go down to the error and click on it, it brings us to the spawn hitbox event, and it is because there is a switch statement on the hitbox type, which has now changed names. So we want to use switch on hitbox type and just plug everything back in like it was already, and we'll be good to go. We need to go to where we are creating the hitboxes, which for now is in our animation blueprint because we have anim notifies. So when we're playing a certain animation and a certain frame is reached, we can then call a function to create the corresponding hitbox. So in this specific example, I'm going to my anim notify default character basic attack active. So for reference, this is my basic attack. It's called basic attack smash, and I have this default character basic attack active. So at this frame, we spawn the active hitbox. I'm calling my create active hitbox function. Now this has most of the parameters that we need to pass in to take damage and all the parameters that the hitbox itself needs from here, except for the hit sound. We need to add that. So if we click on create active hitbox either here on one of these nodes or the function itself, we can then go to the input parameters, add a new parameter, and for the type it is sound wave, and I pick sound wave object reference, and I called the variable hit sound. Once you do this, all the create active hitbox function calls will now have this parameter that you can edit, and we want to assign a sound effect. So you can use any sound effect you want. I have these starter content sound effects in here, so I just picked one, explosion 01, but of course pick whatever sound effect you want or have. Now go into create active hitbox, and in here we actually need to assign the hitbox hit sound property to hit sound being passed into the function. So we're spawning a hitbox actor BP and we're setting all the default values about it. And at the very end here, I've added a new reroute node. This is still our hitbox actor BP. As you can see, I can follow it all the way back to the return value here. So this is the hitbox actor BP that we spawned. We want to call set hit sound, get this node, and then we need to pass in hit sound that comes from the parameter list. So you see it comes down here, and I'm passing this into hit sound. And that's how we get this right here. So now the hitbox actor BP has the hit sound actually set up properly, but because take damage in the character blueprint doesn't take in a full hitbox as of now, we have to manually pass the sound effect there. So if we go to hitbox actor BP, so for reference, my animation blueprint is in animations, default character, blueprints, default anim BP. This is the one that I'm using. And then the other class we need for today's episode is our hitbox actor BP, which for me is in blueprints, functional BPs, logic, hitbox actor BP. So when you come in here, we have this one function called check collision, which literally determines if the hitbox is overlapping with any part of the character that it can deal damage to. And if it does, and all the right conditions are met, we call take damage on the character that we collided with. Take damage will now have a hit sound parameter. Now the hitbox already has this, we just set it in the animation blueprint. So what we need to do is get hit sound and pass it directly into the hit sound on take damage. Once you do that, you will be good to go, and you will be able to hear sound effects when you collide with your opponent using a hitbox that you created with one of your attacks. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode on adding sound effects to your hits and your hitboxes, and if you did, please subscribe. It does more for myself and the channel than anything else you can do, and it helps me know that you are excited to see more content like this. If you want to support the channel and get extra benefits for doing so, feel free to check out the Patreon, YouTube membership, and Discord subscriptions like so many kind souls have. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. If you ran into any problems while following this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. There is a link in the description, and I would be happy to help you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.